Well, it looks like we got the McElhaney clan back. Let's take care of business. Now this gun has been cleared. And this is Greg with Lionquestfitness. And it is okay to have fun with firearms, to enjoy firearms, all kinds of firearms. And along the way, you can practice your target acquisition. Also things you might not do that often, such as one-handed shooting. You know, I hit, that was my first shot, second shot, came over here, third, fourth, and then I gave him an extra one. So, Christmas Eve 2025, what I would like to talk about is my favorite gun tubers, the favorite gun channels that I watch. So let's go up to the house. Oh, one thing I want to show you. I have something against Dan the Wolfman Theodore. Now, Dan has this revolver course, kind of a self-defense course you can shoot. And I got the brilliant idea of shooting my 1911, 230 grain hardball. Well, I just had bought these boards. This one was the middle board. After 25 rounds, I wound up shooting the middle out of it. Dan, you cost me a $12 board I'm going to have to replace. So let's talk about my favorite channels. Before we talk about gun channels, let's look at the tools we use today. Rossi 92. Now, I've had this gun over a year and a half. Had to do a little bit of tweaking to it, but it's turned out to be a very good purchase. Now, currently the 92s, the Rossi 92s are being transferred over to the Heritage brand, which is kind of Taurus's third string brand. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect, if it will, the quality of the 92s. Now, let me show you the handgun rig that I was wearing. And what we have, we've got a Zula belt. And then we've got a Smith & Wesson Model 64. Now, they don't make the 64 anymore. And this is one that I had to send back to get the barrel adjusted. But this is my favorite gun. And what we have here, a Zula holster. This is one I've had for quite a number of years. Put a lot of use to it. And I have these speed loader pouches that I got off eBay. And I tend to prefer the Zeta 6 K-clips. They work real well. So now, let's go check out the gun channels. First off, I want to talk about what I call my down-home Appalachian guys. Yeah, these are gun channels. They shoot, they review firearms, and they talk like me with Southern accents. Garage Guy 879, and Mark talks exactly like my brother Harvey. That's one of the reasons I like him so much, because he does make me feel right at home. Does a lot of very good reviews. Walk with Al. Al's out of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. He does a lot of firearm and firearm reviews. He does a lot of shooting. And Al kind of reminds me a little bit of Mr. Holster. Good guy. And now this gentleman is from Louisiana, Lever Guns 50. And he is also what I would say a down-home kind of gentleman. And he specializes in all kinds of lever guns. Very entertaining channel. Also one that you can learn a lot from. So our next category is collectors, guys that primarily collect firearms. Sometimes they shoot them, but they're into collecting. You know, number one, my friend Bat Jack JW. And currently he's into Colt Pythons, still heavily into 1911s. And he has a show he drops every weekend. And he usually has some interesting comments and insights. Duelist 1954. Now, I say collector, but he also shoots, does a lot of history, especially Western history. And I recommend his channel. Another channel that's into collectibles, Legacy Collectibles. Now, he specializes in World War I and World War II firearms, particularly from the German side. And he also has a site where they sell these types of firearms. But very interesting, always interested in the history. Now, as far as ballistics, Gun Sam. Gun Sam does a very professional job. Now, he does primarily focus on handgun ballistics, but you can learn a lot from watching his channel. Now, as far as legal advice about use of force, Second Amendment issues, Tom Greaves, highly recommend him. He's a former prosecutor and also a defense attorney who defends people who've been in use of force situations. I also recommend the attorney Andrew Branca, who he has written a book on self-defense and firearms and some of the parameters thereof. I highly recommend those two channels for legals. Now, Western, Wild West. Now, you might say, Greg, aren't you stretching it a little bit to include some of those channels? Well, not really, because a lot of guys who are into firearms are suckers for old Western movies and Western history. And the Wild West Extravaganza. I highly recommend this. This is a history channel, but the narrator brings the stories to life. And he's very, very entertaining, very educational. He does a lot of research for his channel. Now, another one is my friend Santee from Arizona Ghost Riders. He combines humor with history, does do a lot of firearms on his channel, and Western reenactments. Highly recommend the Arizona Ghost Riders. Now let's get to a category that I call expert. These gentlemen are experts. One is Mix Up 98. Now I know a lot of the folks that follow my channel also follow his channel. He does a lot of shooting. He talks about a lot of different firearms, especially firearms that are used, that he finds in pawn shops and gun stores. And mostly he does shooting. Sometimes he'll talk about, things about how to enhance your shooting. All right, now next would be another friend of mine, H.R. Funk, who's a retired police chief, also a retired police firearms trainer. And HR does a lot of shooting. He does a lot of reviews, everything from hunting firearms to self-defense firearms to paramilitary type firearms for police or private citizens. And I highly recommend his channel. It's very educational. Also, he can be very entertaining at times. Now, this is the expert's expert that I'm going to mention right here. And this is a gentleman by the name of Dick Fairburn. And he has a channel, Lock and Load with Dick Fairburn. And he has been around a long time. I can remember being a rookie police officer in the 80s reading a magazine called The Police Marksman that he had a lot to do with. And he covers everything from ballistics to different types of firearms, to citizen self-defense, he covers the whole gamut. And he has that expertise. He has that inside knowledge of the gun industry. And he's a very engaging speaker. Now, last but not least, and I had to have a special category for this gentleman, and it's Dan the Wolfman Theodore. And Dan is a former MMA guy, traditional martial artist, and he's kind of morphed or followed into the firearms realm because, as you age, the physical skills are going to deteriorate. And he's very good. Now, Dan is a detailed person, very much detailed. He's also very ADHD, so he puts it out quick. But he's a guy who looks, who watches, who thinks, who analyzes, especially self-defense situations. We got too many guys on YouTube, gun influencers or whatever you want to call them, that all they want to do is slug steel, stand flat-footed and slug steel. Dan's talking about movement. Dan's talking about defending. All right, you got a guy with a machete attack. All right, you need to move to the right because that's going to change his angle of balance. All right, you have a handgun attack. Most people shoot low and shoot left. All right, you need to move to your left because that bullet's probably going to come this way. He thinks about those kind of things. How are you going to block in a situation? How are you going to block and draw? He's one of the few people that I'm aware of that actually thinks out of the box as far as tying firearms and firearms training into self-defense. So these are some of the channels that I enjoy, and there are many more that I also subscribe to, but those are my favorites. And what I'd like you to do, if you have a certain favorite that I didn't mention, or if you like some of the channels I mentioned, please put so in the comments. And this is Greg with Lionquestfitness, wishing everybody a safe and happy new year and a safe and happy 2026.